I don't really feel like I missed anything with connecting uh, as a performer, because I have I feel fortunate that my music has shown me the world. But at the same time, to be kind of in the throes of, I think what happened to me personally was the incident with our brother George Paris Floyd.
Yes.
And that incident brought me to a certain kind of disappointment and a disillusionment with what this country that I've been an ambassador for through the music for all my life. And
Mm-hmm.
it brought me to a certain recognition and coming to terms with what who we really are. And it was just such, and then no surprise to me that we exploded, first of being
Yes.
locked down and then something like that happened. So I think for me, it became important for me to find some way to circumvent the sadness that
Mm-hmm.
I was overcome with, along with so many millions of other people around the world.
Yes.
So the truth of it is that was very hard, and I struggled with it along with others. I just struggled with how to stay positive. And people who said to me when the pandemic first kicked in and the whole lockdown, they were asking me, what are you going to write about? Because I received a grant from the Chamber of Music America back about 4 or 5 months ago, and which is a wonderful thing to be asked to write. So
Yes.
my whole career has been about just being motivated to do so. When someone says we want you to do it, it's like, oh well, your mind draws a blank. The first thing you're like, what do I say?
Yeah.
And are you going to write about the pandemic? I was like, well, it's depressing, and I don't really want to sing about that or write about it. But
Uh,
as month 4, month 5, month 7, it was like, yeah, okay, I have some things to say about this.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I would say that what occurred as an anecdote, I don't know if it's an antidote at this point or which one it is, but I have a history of music in my family that goes back generations and generations. No one was ever professional, but we came out of a stomped down holiness Pentecostal sanctified church, and
Mm-hmm.
those are my roots. My brother Curtis and I come from that, and my mother was one of two lead singers in a gospel group that started out being, I think, as many as 75 voices, and then it kind of ended up being about 8 or 9 or 7 or 8, and they sang for 40 something years,
Wow.
40 something years consecutively. I mean, it wasn't like they were professionals. This is what they did when they didn't weren't working when they weren't working two jobs, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and when they
Mm-hmm.
didn't weren't raising 7 and 6 and 9 children.
Mm.
But I looked up into my maybe third decade of my career. I had, I'm from Miami. I lived there until the age of 23. I started my career in Miami when I was all of 17 or 18 years old. Some of my best gigs are my earliest gigs, believe it or not, singing in the Miami Beach hotel circuit and all that stuff, building a name and all of that and repertoire
Yes.
while I was getting my degree at the University of Miami in music and jazz. So I was well into my career before I moved to New York in 78, and then hit the ground running, literally, in New York, and then I guess I had, I think I moved to New York really to start a recording career. That was a real goal.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't to like really be this singer in a nightclub forever. That can actually be physically, you know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
a real task to undertake. To just do that for your whole life can be very difficult and daunting. So establishing a career expands the horizons, of course, obviously. So when I got there, I'm hitting it, I'm doing my thing, and I look up and it's, a decade or so half later, and I find myself in Los Angeles.
Yes.
So now, I'm farther away from my family
Mm-hmm.
in Miami. I'm at the extreme end of the country, still plying my trade and everything. But I look up and I realize that my mother and these wonderful voices and these incredibly strong Black women were still singing, and no one had ever recorded them.
Wow.
So I had spoke to my aunt who had just retired from the military, and I said, this doesn't make sense now. How could they still be doing this for 40 plus years and no one ever recorded them? So we went into the studio in 1991. The first recording session was the day after Christmas when all of the siblings who live in other states flew in for the holiday. And the next day we were in the studio. So I have this footage of like 9 hours of interviews and recordings and songs. And I had this stuff in my house and looked up, and here comes the pandemic. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to edit these 9 hours of VHS tapes. And my God, some of the condition, and got them transferred to DVD. And then that was another task to get them into my computer. And so long story short, I edited a film that took me 4.5 months, but it all took place in these last 4.5 months. So that's what I've been doing.
Wow.
I edited the film, and it's all about. I mean, it's so interesting that this film should happen 30 years after they did it. So my mother has passed on, and the other lead singer had passed on. And I said, you know what? I've got to tell this story, and I got to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
That going back into that time tunnel saved my emotional life. Being able to revisit and be with my mother like that, and see myself, some 30 years ago, and to observe the relationship and the bond and the humor, the sisterhood, the strength, the belief system, the everything. And to be able to be in that time tunnel for 4.5 months was absolutely a wonderful gift. Wonderful gift. My film is called Nothing But the Blood, which is one of the songs of the many songs that they recorded. And I don't know what's going to happen next with that film. But in the midst of all that, I said, isn't this something that I should be listening to my aunt who plays some of the most serious piano you'll ever hear in the gospel tradition? And I'm thinking, well, maybe this, I don't know where, but somehow this is going to float up in my music. Where? I don't know. So there were certain days when I would like, sleep on a song and sleep for days hearing a song of theirs, or because I'm hours, 8, 12 hours a day editing. So these songs were, and then I would look at my aunt and how every time she would hit the piano, everything would be perfect.
Yes.
So I thought, okay, I'm just not even gonna it's not gonna be about intellectualizing anything. This is gonna float up and find its way in my music. And not that it hasn't been all along, but just that I've been, in commission to write. Kind of I thought maybe some of this would inform me.
Yes.
And so now I think I'm up to maybe I don't know, 7 compositions so far. And I'm recording all of that, singing all of that, and writing all of that, and scoring all of that. So the music, as you were saying, is absolutely the key to sustaining positivity and strength and forward thinking. And then we lost that guy, who fell off the wall that he was trying to build, and all the king's horses and all the king's men, could not, patch that together again, So with all of the depression that has been brought on the world by this one man's negativity, it's finally beginning to dissipate slowly, because it took a while for it to take hold. All of the signs were already there, which I sing about in Code Noir, and which I sing about in Soul to Soul.
Yes.
And you mentioned Soul to Soul. Soul to Soul.
I love it.
So Soul to, you mentioned Soul to Soul. Did you have a question about it?
I just wanted you and the world to know that from one piece to the next, you have to listen to it. I don't have any questions. It's just a love of mine. And I've listened to, excuse me, all of your work, but that Soul to Soul is just my favorite. I don't know. There's something, I listen to it and I hear something different, new. I hear you as the reporter for what's really going on in the world. I put you in that category. Your songs depict what's really being done, what's really being said, what we're really thinking about, what but we're not saying necessarily, how we're living. So that's my take on Soul to Soul and all of your work, as a matter of fact, Miss Lundy, all of it.
Well, it's funny that the inspiration right behind my left shoulder is a gigantic poster of Ella Fitzgerald that greets me every time I come into my studio.
Mm.
And when I entered the whole, college years, I knew that I was going to be a music major, but I knew that I didn't want to be an education music major. I knew that I wanted to be a performer. So there was only, their curriculum gave me two choices: music education or applied voice. And applied voice is basically has to do with performance, applying the performance,
Mhm.
your art in that realm. And I entered, and my choice was to continue into classical music. So I was doing opera,
Wow.
because that's what you do as a vocalist in a classical program. They give you all these arias and all these Italian art songs and stuff. And I was thrust into this whole discipline of vocal technique and all these things. And I looked up and I learned from a pianist friend of mine that I started my career with, Dave Broidstein. And David was up in the jazz department. So occasionally David or one of his classmates would say, "Oh, Carmen, I got this song
Uh-huh.
that I wrote for my class. Can you sing it for me?" I'm like, "Sure." So next thing I know, I was off and running, and particularly with my gospel background, where I had come from this experience of singing in a way that was in the moment more so than the written note on the page.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
had background in both from the choral music and stuff. But when I got to college and somebody asked me to sing something, I was like, okay, So after a year or two of bouncing back and forth from everybody's songs and getting this little elective class called Jazz Vocal 101 or something, the next thing I know, they had created, I think I was the impetus for them establishing a curriculum for the jazz vocalist. But they didn't really know what they were doing yet, so they just threw me in there and put me in the class with all these great jazz musicians who were all, applying their craft and
Uh-huh.
developing. And by the time I left, they had established, I think it was the year after I left, actually, they created this curriculum. So I was a jazz major, but my instrument was voice. So that's kind of the way I, continued for the next 4 years at the University of Miami. So here it is. I'm hearing, learning about the John Coltrane's, and I'm learning about the Miles Davises, and I'm hearing about, this is what I'm getting. I'm
Yeah.
not getting any information about the singer at all. Let me tell you. So it was my friend and the bass player in the band that I was in at the time who had a cassette of Ella Fitzgerald.
Yes.
I'm like, who is that?
Yeah.
Who is that? So when I heard Ella Fitzgerald, that was the long and short of all that I'm telling you. The beginning, the middle, then the end. And the great modern ancestor that she is.
Yes.
So that started me into this whole thing of that's what I'm going to do. That is what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
So I think Ella came first. And somewhere along the way, I discovered Billie Holiday.
Mm.
So by the time I got to New York, I had my repertoire together. I was singing some Stevie Wonder, I was singing some Ella, I was singing whatever, just to get the gig done. 6 nights a week, three
Wow.
sets a night, year in, year out, year in, year out. I tell you, I'm not exaggerating. That's my life.
Oh
It
my.
was 6 nights a week, 3 sets a night. Get up 8:30 class, theory class. Finish school at 4 a.m. 4 p.m. Turn around and get to the gig. So those early years were hugely important because back then there were no competitions. You couldn't enter the blah 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 competition to
Mm-hmm.
get yourself going. We had a phase before my time. I'm a child of the 60s really and 70s.
Yes.
But
Yes.
there was, the Apollo stuff had already ended. The amateur thing at the Apollo. You couldn't do that in the 70s. It wasn't happening in the 70s in New York. That was over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
had to get, you had to put your, feet to the pavement and go out there and find a gig.
Yes.
So that was the way I developed. So I think that musical training was so helpful because I was able to, first off, learn a lot of music on my own, independent of the bandstand. But then I get on the bandstand with some of the world's greatest artists in New York.
Yes.
So I had this wonderful balance and duality going on. And the whole thing of the writer, the composer, was never really what I thought would happen. I was Ella Fitzgerald's granddaughter, as far as I was
Yes.
concerned. I
Yes.
adopted her, as my jazz grandmother. And but there was a reason for it, and I didn't really know what the reason was. But I knew that at some point, because so many of those great artists were still alive, and I was a youngster, when I would hear Betty Carter
Mm-hmm.
perform, my brother played with her for years, so I got to see her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear Carmen McRae and to go and check out all, and to see Ella on the bandstand and to see Nina Simone, my God, I'm thinking, well, what, where do I fit? I'm this little, youngster, uh, looking for my place in a pantheon of great vocalists.
Yes.
So I didn't really know how I was going to be able to sustain a career covering the songs that were already being covered by all these great singers.
Mm-hmm.
So from the very first demo tape that I brought to Columbia Records back in the late 70s, I inserted my original compositions. I was like, maybe they'll just hear me. This
Mm-hmm.
won't be the version of something that they already know, and then I'll be compared to that, and then they'll be able to determine if I'm really worthy of anything of their interest based on my cover of a cover of a cover. So I began to insert my original compositions, and which started with a course that I had to take as a jazz major. I had to take composition. I had to take arranging. I had to take theory. I had to take these things in order to pass, to get the degree. But did I ever think that I would apply them? The composition, I just never really saw associated that with becoming this known for being a jazz singer, because it was all about improvisation. It was all about being able to stand toe to toe in the context of a performance when somebody finishes their horn solo or their drum solo or their piano solo. There I'd be, with my solo.
Yes.
And then I realized there was a lot of creativity going into those on the spot, spontaneous improvisation that I could apply similarly to my composition.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, let me take some of this creative thought and make something up.
Yes. Yes.
So 40 something, almost 50 years later, here I am, and you're talking about Soul to Soul, which I think is entirely original music, with the exception of What's Your Story, Morning Glory, paying homage to another great modern ancestor, Mary Lou Williams. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
the thing I also love about Soul to Soul, speaking of Mary Lou Williams, a great pianist, is that both pianists on that record are women.
Oh, wow.
Patrice Rushen and Jerry Allen.
I
On
love
my
it.
keyboard stuff, then
Oh,
sides, somewhere in there you'll hear me, on my Fender Rhodes or electronic keys, but it's women. So
yes.
that's another thing about Soul to Soul that I think sets that record apart.
Yes.
We held that sucker together, with other stellar artists like, Benny Maupin, my God, and introducing a young drummer. I think it was maybe his second record in his career, and then, Randy Brecker, another veteran, and just so many great artists on that record.
That's why
So
it takes the life that it takes, and you hear it. You can't just listen one time. Every time you listen, it's from one cut to the next. It has to be that way because it's just that great. And I listen to you, Carmen, and I hear you speak of how you invested. You invested deeply into your craft, and it's obvious that you still do. And here you are today paying homage to the modern ancestors.
yes, indeed.
You speak of the late Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday, and as I read your press release, you speak of Ray Charles and Sarah Vaughan and John Coltrane, and when we listen to your work and your contribution to this healing property that all of this great music brings, your name is right there with them. So I say kudos for you understanding and paying homage to those great folks because as time goes on, we continue to give homage to you, Carmen Lundy. And I mean that with all of my heart. I mean that. You are a marvel. You really are.
Well, you know that you think about it. So, the modern ancestors, when we talk about finding our roots and who we are and going all the way back and stuff, and I thought,
Mm-hmm.
well, wait a second, what about the ones that were just left us and
Mm-hmm.
gave us so much more information that help actually define how the world and how America sees itself
Yes.
through the music, and but at the same time being being guided by that information and by that example and being given permission through that to be yourself
Mm.
and to ultimately find your statement, not just your voice, but to find, or we can use voice in a broader term, not just the literal, but to actually speak and through, it's almost like a funnel funneling all that information and that it comes out as you
Yes.
without it sounding like, oh, she reminds me of, you sound just like so and so, and blah, 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 blah. No,
Mm-hmm.
that it's really a true individual quality that is the same thing that we associate with all the greats we've just mentioned. And to
Yes.
find your own distinctive voice and quality is the journey, is
Mm-hmm.
indeed the walk. And therein lies the the reason for my um, making this kind of an offering at this point in my career was to actually tell and remind everybody else that if not for what has happened before, how could there be me?
Mm-hmm.
So there is no ego in this. This is like you say homage. This is um, a coming to terms with that which gives us shape and form and identity and inspiration and inspires others. And just to be an artist doesn't necessarily mean that this music is for artists only. Those of us who use music and need music for our own sustenance, whatever the genre, whatever the sound,
Yes.
music is here. That is the spirit and the voice of everything that comes before us.
Yes.
It's not by accident that you come along and now, if it wasn't for you, nothing would be great.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing is very short lived, and people have to be very careful with that. When they think if not for them, well, the heck with all those old people.
Mm.
I always say to my students, I became a teacher without, you know, I've taught all over the world. I've had the pleasure of holding up the banner for the Great Betty Carter's Jazz Ahead program at the Kennedy Center for 17 years
Oh
consecutively. I
my.
did that, and
Mm.
all of that was because I was them once, and they were kids once, and they had dreams once, and they
Yes.
had to find their own voice once. And Betty would tell you in a minute, get your own sound.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I appreciate that you like my song and you're singing my song the way I sing it, but get your own. you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
So there are reasons for, sometimes you choose and sometimes you're chosen. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
Mm-hmm.
answer the call because you have been chosen, you better answer it with
Mm.
bells on. And there are all kinds of obstacles that are going to be thrown at you. Some you will duck, and some will be bullseye, hit you square between. You know, bullseye.
Yes.
I lost a brother during this COVID. That's
Mm.
bullseye, you know? But then that's also a source of inspiration to go on because that's what you have to do. You
Yes.
have to keep going. And all those other bullseye things like guilt and all those other negative emotions that get in your way. But if you are honest with yourself and you can love yourself despite your shortcomings, then you bring all of that to the music. You bring all of that to the story, and then people will listen.
Well, you
And
know
then
what, Carmen? I hear that in your music also. I hear all of that. I'm sitting here nodding my head and I'm just saying, she is teaching. She is teaching. She is preaching. I hope that the listeners, I'm going to make sure that they hear all of this because what you are doing is opening up your world to us, this big, vast world of technique and resilience and freedom, even your great measure of freedom, how you can bring us into the right there with you in that song, in that music. It is just, it's mesmerizing. It really is. It's
well,
the
thank
kind of
you
thing that
so
we
much.
need these days because so many of us, we are bound in our spirits. We are bound by fear. There's so much going on, as you said. But a person listen to modern ancestors or hey, soul to soul. Anything that Carmen Lundy puts out, I recommend sit back and turn yourself over into that music. Turn yourself over to that moment, turn themselves over into your hands and they will come out better. That's what I've done time and time again.
I
So,
really ask that our community, our Black community, you know, we there's something with the word when you say jazz, okay? I had heard a little kid say, "How come you playing that white people's music?" Okay,
mm,
when I say jazz, it is it's like saying hip hop.
mm,
Okay, there's
mm,
no difference. But if you say, "Oh, she's a jazz singer," "Oh, I don't listen to jazz," "Oh, I don't like jazz," blah, 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 right? Then that means you
mm.
don't know jazz. If you say you don't like jazz, that's because you don't know it.
Yes,
And
yes,
and I would ask that the Black community, this vast community, this Black community that elected this president and this
yes,
vice president, that Black community is what I'm talking to right now. You get your jazz groove on, okay? Get it
yes, yes,
happening because that in and of itself is going to bring you and return you back to everything that makes us a special contribution to this planet. And
yes,
every little ounce of your participation reinforces everything we do for this music. Okay, you are
yes,
the reinforcement. I'm not the reinforcement, you are, because I need for y'all to be part of my journey.
yes.
And as much as and I guess what I'm talking about is another kind of inclusiveness. You know, the first time I went to London, for example, I'm in London. I think the first time I went was maybe the early 90s.
Mhm,
And I didn't even want to go.
mhm.
I didn't know those people and I didn't think they knew me. And I got there and was blown away by the fact that they knew exactly who I was. But the thing
Yes,
is that I remember was tuning into the Black radio station and hearing Donny Hathaway, and the next thing they played Miles Davis right after that. You
yes,
know, and you
yes,
would hear like some beautiful Aretha ballad, and then they would play Sarah.
yes,
You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't so
yes.
divvied up and spread out and smooth this and that. We
Mm-hmm,
don't play that other stuff over here, and that's only we only play this on this station. That
mm-hmm.
is by design. One of the beautiful things that I love about our music and what we do is that it's a thinking music.
Yes, it
It's
is.
not just for the libido. It's
Yes,
not just for the booty call. You know
yes,
what I mean? This is a thinking, and you can actually process and arrive at another level of your own understanding of yourself with just this music in your environment.
yes,
So I
yes.
would just, on my appeal, and thank you for this, allowing me to say this. My appeal is to the Black community to get behind us.
Yes.
And to
Yes.
come on, get on this train, get on this train. This ain't no underground. You
Yes.
know what I'm talking about, okay? I'm
Yes.
talking about us building the stairway to the stars, if you will, on Jacob's ladder, straight to
Yes.
heaven. This is a
Yes.
straight up vessel. This is the vehicle you want to be on if you want to get to that beautiful, brighter place somewhere out in the ether that they call heaven. It's
Yes.
right up in here in this music. So that's my appeal to my black sisters and brothers this day, and for all of those who are not black sisters and brothers who are identified with feeling oppressed, with being marginalized, with
Mhm.
being, reduced and being told how to live and to be, incarcerated for most of your natural life. I'm
Mhm.
asking you, come on with us and be enlightened and being brought to a better place through the sound of this beautiful music that has everything to do with people before me. And the name of my record is Modern Ancestors. But when you listen to that record, everything is new.
Yes.
Some beautiful musicians on this record. The youngest guy, I got to tell you this. I got to tell you a little bit about the record, Modern Ancestors. This kid, this Haitian brother that I met at Betty Carter's Jazz Head program, all of 18 years old, is on piano, and he
Wow.
plays the whole record. Okay, and that
Wow.
young kid has his own. He is another one that y'all need to be paying attention to. His name is Julius Rodriguez. Okay, I had two drummers, one from Seattle originally. His name is Casa Overall, and the other brother is Terry on Gully. I mean, these guys. I'm telling you names that maybe you don't know, but I'm telling you that you don't have to get a Carmen Lundy record. Make sure that you get my record to get their names straight so you can follow their careers. Andrew
Yes.
Winfro on guitar, produced by Elizabeth Uwe. My brother Curtis Lundy on bass. It's holding up. I mean, it ain't gonna happen without that bass. And Curtis Lundy and Kenny Davis are killing it on bass, killing it.
Yes.
I'm telling you. So that record, Myra Casales, originally from Havana, Cuba, throwing it down in the authentic way. I mean, that's one boat. How should I say this? One jump off the boat before you get to the United States, Cuba. Okay,
Yes.
one
Yes.
one person who got, and then the West makes them a little bit closer to Africa than we are. So we
Yes.
can't be dismissing all that Caribbean music. We
Yes.
can't keep doing that. We have to understand that that's all part of what makes us, and our contribution to the planet on so many levels, not just the music people, but on so many levels. We have to sit up with our backs straight and know that if not for us, this country could not be what it is.
Yes.
There it is. There it
Yes.
is. And I'm proud to say it. I'm not apologizing for it.
No.
And you need to understand it because it's the truth.
Yes. Yes. Mm. That's this conversation. I tell you, I am modern ancestors. You are generous. You are, I would say, a Renaissance woman, but no, you are Renaissance, but you are in the right now. I'm having a conversation here with Carmen Lundy, and I want everybody to understand that this lady, upon this day of 11/24/2020, just received notification. She is up for a Grammy. So, congratulations to you. When we hear you speak, is it any wonder that has come your way? I'm projected you shall take home the Grammy. Thank you, Carmen.
And you know
Thank you.
what? And thank you. But here's the thing that, I have been on those ballots for most of my recording life and
Mhm.
never been recognized. Okay. This is the first time ever I've been recognized for all that I've done. And we
Mm.
were we just had this wonderful sense going in with the Soul to Soul project that was going to be the first for us, but it wasn't. And then I did, before, I think Changes was before that. And then we did Code Noir, which everybody that I'm talking to should read the book Black Count and know what Code Noir really means. And then
Mhm.
you'll understand how we got to this mess in the first place.
Mhm.
Code Noir. And then comes Modern Ancestors. And then there's all the ones before that. Self Portrait, Old Devil Moon, Good Morning Kiss, Moment to Moment. I mean, I can't say them all.
Mhm.
I can't even recall them all right now, but this is the first time for me. But the thing I remind myself of is I didn't come into this for a kind of a tangible evidence of an award somewhere sitting in, amongst my other collectibles in my home. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not
Yes.
for the award. I appreciate the recognition. I really sincerely appreciate the recognition for the time spent and the dedication to my craft. However, I'm moving on. Despite if I get it, yay, like you say, so be it. But
Yeah.
I'm moving on. I got to keep on rolling. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And do
Yes.
this because this is I think my contribution as an individual entity in this great, great world that we're in, and the vastness and the awesomeness of everything that is life. That's really my message to you all, is to do what you love and do it to the max, and do things and be good to people and do good things. Do things that you love that are good, not things that are gonna, you ruin somebody else's life. I
Yes.
mean, you might love guns, but don't shoot it at anybody. Shoot it at some
Mhm.
target out in the woods somewhere.
Mhm.
You might love to do things that are otherwise considered to be of an illegal nature,
Yes.
but you got to find the beauty and the legality in that stuff, and keep it rolling, because that's where we really manifest what I think the whole point of what we're really trying to accomplish is. And that is, like you said, freedom to be, freedom to live, freedom to be able to, freedom without fear. My
Yes.
God, fear that
Yes.
somebody's going to take away everything that you worked your entire life for in a blink of an eye,
Yes.
and take away your innocence. This is
Mm.
not right. So I remind myself that for as much as I am celebrating with you this day, the 24th of November, happy birthday again.
Thank
And
you.
my birthday was November 1st.
Oh, happy belated
So we're in the
birthday.
same month, yes. So I am, as long as I can stay in this with my sanity, with my strength, with my ability to come to this music with guidance, being guided by all this wonderful modern and ancient ancestry that makes us who we are.
Yes.
That's what is truly the focus at the end of the day. So we celebrate now because it's yippee.
Yes, indeed.
It's woohoo day, But again, we still have work to do, and it doesn't stop. You just keep on moving. We just keep on. Get up out of bed, put some clothes on, because you can't go outside with no clothes on, because they'll lock you
Yes.
up, put you somewhere
Oh,
you don't want to be. Can't
no. And can't get away from too
get
easily,
away.
I would
You
imagine.
never can explain it ever again.
Yeah. Well,
So
I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Nothing But the Blood. Gosh, the fact that you are so totally involved in the memories and the life that you have given to that footage. Kudos to you. I can't wait.
mm, I don't
Whatever
know what's gonna
happens at the
happen.
Grammys, I'm glad that you're moving on with everything that you do. I don't believe that you are a woman that will go to the grave empty. I think that you will go that I don't you won't go full. You will go empty because you have given so
Mm,
much each and every day of your life. That
yeah.
is how I perceive you, Carmen Lundy. You are giving and giving from your purpose, giving from your passion, giving from the investment that you've made in yourself each and every day. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for this time to have a conversation with me, Margot Levette. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Margot. And I tell my students one other thing. There's two kinds of people: a
Mm,
giver and a taker.
mhm.
Be a giver.
Yes, be a giver. You have been teaching, you have been enlarging our eyesight. As I say, music is a healer. And when you write, you are a poet, you are a journalist, and
Mhm.
Carmen Lundy, you have made a big difference in this world because you are telling the stories of yourself, others our stories.
Yes.
So modern ancestors.
I appreciate you, Margot. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank
Well,
you so very much.
thank you, and be safe. Have a wonderful holiday, and gosh, I'm going to talk about your work from forevermore. All right?
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
All
Appreciate
right.
that.
Yes.
Okay. You
Bye
be
bye
well and
now.
keep safe now.
Thank you.